Good afternoon and welcome to this brief encounter that I wanted to address. Netanyahu's speech, press conference in a couple of days ago on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, where he asserted again Israel's sovereignty over all of historical Palestine. And even though that there are a number of people that have said that his statement was not translated correctly, but should not confuse us of Netanyahu's commitment to having total sovereignty over historical Palestine. Netanyahu's from the river to the sea is the effective policy today of Israel and the refusal of having any contemplation of an independent Palestinian state. This is not a result of just the current war in Gaza, but actually it's a long-standing policy, both in terms of the Likud, but also it's a foundational element of Israel and the Zionist project. So, one, the notion of the right of return, not for the Palestinians, but the return to Palestine for the creation of the state of Israel as a Jewish state, is guaranteed by means of the existing body of law, the basic law in Israel. And Israel differentiate between citizenship and nationality. And as such, a foundational element that nationality in relations to the Israeli society is reserved exclusively to the Jewish Zionist members of the state, while Palestinians in 48 have the right of citizenship but do not have the right of nationality. This is also included in the articulation in 2018 of sovereignty, designating sovereignty exclusively to Jews and to the Jewish members of the state. And in here, Netanyahu, and annexing the West Bank, he says the Jewish people have an exclusive and unquestionable right to all areas of the land of Israel. So again, when Netanyahu and the Israeli political establishment speaks of the land of Israel, they are not speaking of the 1948 area. They're speaking about all of historical Palestine, which in essence includes the so-called development of Area C of the occupied West Bank, and literally also the expansion of Jerusalem municipality almost threefold. So that's again is the policy statement of the Likud party that commits to all of the land, quote, of Israel, and also the development of Area C, which is the largest part of the West Bank, in such a way that prevents and precludes the possibility of the Palestinian state. Also, one has to say that Netanyahu is committed to no two-state solutions, right? So he says Likud's original party platform insists that between the sea and the Jordan, there will be only Israeli sovereignty. Right? That's also a part of the discussions about the Oslo Agreement. The Oslo Agreement literally has not included Palestinian sovereignty. So no two-state solution. And Netanyahu worked almost overtime to disrupt, to curtail, to prevent, to frustrate the notions of a two-state solution emerging in Palestine. And since 1967, the Camp David Agreement, the passing through the Oslo Agreement, all the way up to the present, the international community, and don't get me started on the international community, but I'll leave that to another discussion, has been selling the Palestinians the notion of a two-state solution, that if you just wait, if you just engage, if you just cajole and work with the Israelis, if you just have an understanding, if you have normalization, all kinds of dialogue, joint economic projects, that it will arrive at a Palestinian state. But the reality is that there is no two-state solution. Likud's party platform is very clear on this, and Netanyahu has worked hard to prevent a possibility of a two-state solution. Netanyahu says sexual colonialism continues. There's a coalition agreement for this current government. The coalition agreement also states that the nation of Israel has a natural right to the land of Israel. With such a sweeping statement that eliminates Israel's colonial history, the document also pledges that in light of the belief in the aforementioned right, the prime minister will formulate and promote policies within whose framework sovereignty will be applied to Judea and Samaria. So again, this is at the foundation of the current coalition agreement. So when we talk about the current government that is governing Israel, that is based on a coalition agreement between the various components of the party, including the, you could say, the extreme right wing, but in general, the agreement actually for the prime minister to work on making sure that the exercise of sovereignty on what's called Judea and Samaria, which is the West Bank, is to be exercised exclusively by the Israeli government and his current coalition. Lastly, no to Palestinian statehood has to be understood. I say clearly to everyone who is still stuck on October 6th, we will never allow the establishment of a Palestinian state. This was tweeted by Miki Zohar, Israel Minister of Culture and Sport. This is our commitment to the murdered martyrs and fallen heroes. So now what we are seeing is, again, the utilization or the deployment of the events of October 7th and using the death of individuals as a result of the attack, Hamas attack, as a way to reaffirm a policy that was in existence. So let's just make sure to understand that the October 7th events are not the cause of the resistance to a two-state solution. On the contrary, the basic policy of the current Israeli government, the Likud platform, the current coalition, is long-standing of preventing the rise of Palestinian state. And I remind people that the agitation against Rabin post-Oslo came from Netanyahu himself, from his political aspiration, sending out the propaganda and messaging, calling Rabin a traitor, dressing Rabin in a Palestinian headscarf in the advertisement that led to his assassination by a right-wing Kahanist member of the Israeli political right, and then also simultaneously followed by Baruch Goldstein, the murder of 49 Palestinian worshippers in Al Khalil in the Ibrahimi Mosque and injuring over 100. So in this sense, the resistance and the attempt to prevent a two-state solution is really a foundational element for the Likud party, but more importantly to Netanyahu himself. And what is absurd to speak of today is that the United States acts if it's shocked. The European Union members, the British, the French, the Germans, so on, act if they are shocked about it. But all along, they have facilitated Netanyahu's policies. They have facilitated the expansion of settlement. They have facilitated the torpedo and the prevention of the Palestinians from exercising or having sovereignty. So, to conclude, we'll have to say following. If anyone wants to challenge Netanyahu, one, immediate and unequivocal recognition of Palestinian sovereignty and statehood. So Biden, U.S. State Department, UK, Germany, France, and so on. If you are having an issue with Netanyahu's framing from the river to the sea, and I know I'm not dealing even with the demonization of Palestinians who speak from the river to the sea. I set that aside for a different discussion. If you are concerned, if you say that this is contrary to the existing body of international law of two-state solution, so go ahead, give immediate, unequivocal recognition of Palestinian statehood, which includes immediate admission of Palestine as a fully recognized state within the United Nations, within the body of all bodies of the international global infrastructure. So that's one. Second, if you are opposing Netanyahu's statement and you are concerned that this is not again, notion of not helpful for peace, right? Second is that immediately institute sanctions against all the settlers and settlements in the West Bank, which includes sanctions on financial transactions, remove the settlements from the SWIFT program for movements of assets and economic assets, prohibit the entry of any products from the settlements and settlers. Again, make that if it is illegal, and if Netanyahu is saying to you there is no two-state solution, the Minister of Culture, Zohar, is saying no Palestinian state. So you speak of the international community, you speak about these principles. So here it is. It's your opportunity. Take action. Make sure that you have a standard that fits all. So immediate sanctions against all elements of settlements activities. Third, impose restrictions, also criminalize transfer of any assets from European Union, from the United States, Canada, and any countries to any type of activities that takes place in the West Bank among the settlements, and so on. So if you are concerned and you say that this is the state, so immediately bring this into force. There's fundraising that takes place to build settlements. There are major donations. There are actually real estate deals that are facilitated and bought and funded to actually bring this into force. So this is your opportunity, the ones who states about international law. If the two-state solution that you are constantly putting as the framework, then there are a whole host of settlements and settlers that are taking property, building settlements, and facilitating the transfer of assets, including some major donors in the United States, Europe, that are funding the settlement activity. So that's your opportunity to act, not the Palestinians. You can't actually also blame Hamas in the Gaza Strip. We're talking specifically right now on all the expansions of settlements and settlers in the West Bank, including the expansion of Jerusalem municipality by stealing land. So that's, again, item 3. Item 4, I know that the United States, Biden said that he will actually target settlers and prohibit their ability to come to the United States. That's not sufficient. Now we could actually bring prosecution and actually say that all these settlers that are attacking Palestinians in the West Bank, that are taking over property, that are cutting trees, that are stealing water, that are disrupting the normal patterns of life of Palestinians, now it's your opportunity to put them on the most wanted list, to put actually their pictures, photographs, their images, and to actually put them on the so-called security list. I know that is very difficult for you because the so-called security list or no-fly list that in there, it's mostly if your name Muhammad, Khalid, or Khadija, or Fatima, you're on it. But long and behold, none of these settlers and all of their activities that is in violation of all international law, violation of the resolutions of the United Nations. So now it's your opportunity to actually have a very legitimate list of individuals that their assets are to be seized, that their ability to travel is restricted, and in essence become part of the clear identification that they constitute a massive violation of international law. Again, I don't want to speak about the State Department, which is not helpful. We're concerned. We're beyond your concern. We're beyond the language of not helpful. We're beyond the language of impediment. We are very specific of what is needed and what is clear in relations to the Palestinians. Lastly, specifically for the United States, that to actually give an immediate recognition for Palestinian diplomatic presence in Washington, because again, since Trump and continued to this, there is no Palestinian diplomatic presence, and as such, this even curtailed the Palestinians' ability to actually have a recognizable presence, considering that if you're committed to a two-state solution, and going back to point one, which I raised, which is immediate unequivocal recognition of Palestinian sovereignty and statehood, then immediately also give a standing for Palestinian diplomatic presence. And so these are issues that are very clear that needs to be undertaken if the framework that you continue to push to the Palestinians in there. So this is what I wanted to have in relations to Netanyahu's from the river to the sea. I see a question says, do you think Netanyahu's blatantly stating his intent will be positive or negative for the cause? Well, it's very difficult to say. What is clear is Netanyahu is still trying to rescue his political career. He's still facing three major corruption charges. And the longer the war continues in against Gaza, but also the longer that it continues to disrupt Palestinian normal life in the West Bank, the longer that Netanyahu can hold on his seat of power. But even that, we need to understand that from Netanyahu, from the Israeli political landscape, there is a complete attempt to bypass the Palestinians. And this is also the Abrahamic Accord, the bilateral negotiations or bilateral relations with Arab and Muslim countries. At the core of it is to bypass the Palestinians and to make the Palestinians irrelevant relative to Israel's planning for its continued policy, hegemonic power, regional power in the region, without having to actually understand and come to the basic understanding that there is no way to bypass the Palestinians. So if there is anything around the current development in terms of Gaza, it shows and demonstrates that there is no possibility of bypassing the Palestinians, and there is no way that relations with the United Arab Emirates, normalization with Saudi Arabia, relations with Egypt and Jordan, it might delay the recognition of the centrality of the Palestinians. It might complicate the matters for Palestinians. It might tarnish or demonize the Palestinians, but make no mistake about it. Unless and until the Palestinians are spoken to on their own terms and from their own historical trajectory relative to the Nakba, relative to the right of return, relative to sovereignty over their homes and lands, right? Unless those are the basic frames to discuss and consider, we are just only continuing to bypass the reality of what settler colonialism has achieved and what Israel, in essence, is almost completely try to have an erasure of what is the main causes for the current developments that are taking place in Palestine. So I think Netanyahu is still trying to play in a landscape that he defined, or a landscape that he created. And first and foremost is his own political survival, one, but more importantly, is a commitment to the prevention of Palestinian sovereignty, statehood, and freedom. So when we talk about what the Palestinians want, they want freedom. They want freedom and justice in 48. They want freedom and justice in the West Bank. They want freedom and justice in Gaza. They want freedom and justice for the Palestinians in the Galilee. They want freedom and justice for those in the refugee camps. That is at the core of the Palestinians. Freedom, justice, and call for recognition of their dignity and their standing, both as a people in their own land and a people on the international stage. Netanyahu and all his political operatives and current government want to make sure that this is not the case, and then as in essence bypassing them by creating the facade that there is a peace with the Arab world and the Muslim world, and packaging it as that we are dealing with the difficulties that are in there, difficulties for Israel, difficulties in the regional structure, difficulties in relations between the Arab world and Iran. All these difficulties, while accounted for, it is constituted on erasing the Palestinians and bypassing the Palestinian rights to their own land. This is the same type of framing that Balfour and his British colonial circle have put in practice and in motion with the Balfour Declaration. This is the same that have attempted or was the frame of the British Mandate. This was the attempt of the Nakba 1948 to expel the Palestinians out, and it continues to be the basis of all of this machinations that are taking place. So Netanyahu's from the river to the sea is nothing new. This is actually from Herzl to Netanyahu, from the river to the sea, is to empty Palestine of its indigenous population and to replace this with a settler colonial project. The interesting is just today there was actually a reference that came out that there was discussion, Israel was discussing with the Europeans to create an island off the water, to be constructed in the Mediterranean where the Palestinians actually will be placed in there. And I know that some Europeans who might be entertaining themselves might actually think this as a great idea. There are a lot of things that Europeans think of great ideas, including all of their genocidal policies in Africa, Asia, and the rest of the world. So don't underestimate their propensity to adopt some of the most horrific policies that are there. So this is just, I wanted to reflect with you on Netanyahu's from the river to the sea, and call on both people to understand what is taking place and put it in historical context, and then demand from people who try to raise this issue to actually make a very specific demands on them. Again, first and foremost of this demand is immediate, unequivocal recognition of Palestinian statehood and sovereignty, and enough of this delay, enough of the obfuscation, enough of all this playing PR with the Palestinians. Those days, again, are over, and we need to take the steps that are needed to arrive at a different reality and a different consequences for what is occurring. So thank you for being with me. If you like what I said, please share it with your network, and also make sure to continue to access some of the material. I try to, as much as possible, respond to some of these developments and put these pieces that might be helpful for everyone that's following the development in Palestine. So thank you, and hopefully I'll see you again.